This is stupid. Bunch of dumbasses going around in circles.
Yeah, stupid. It's like just a bunch of dumbasses going around in circles.
Where's a roof when you need one?
This is the coolest show in the history of television.
Yeah, it's the coolest show in the history of television. Yeah.
Let's go.
Hello, my chickadees! Game & Chick is back with another review, my longest one yet! Before we get started, I would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to everyone over at Square-Enix for providing me with Final Fantasy VII Intergrade and INTERmission to make this review possible. Thank you so much! This one means a lot to me on a personal level. Okay, so with that mushy stuff out of the way, let's get to it! Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is an action RPG that is developed and published by Square-Enix. Coming off of its success in the PlayStation 4, Square-Enix decided to re-release the game with better performance, graphical upgrades, texture fixes, as well as extra content in the form of yuffie DLC that gives us a glimpse of what's going to come forward. But are all of the changes and fixes enough to warrant buying this on PS5? Or are you better off sticking with the PS4 version for now? Only one way to find out, so let's mosey! The planet's lifestream is being drained for energy by the Shinra Electric Power Company, a world-dominating mega corporation headquartered in the city of Midgar. Shinra's actions are weakening the planet, threatening its existence and all life that inhabits it. It's now up to ex-soldier Cloud Strife and the eco-terrorist group Avalanche to take the fight back to Shinra and stop them from draining the planet of all of its energy. But a conspiracy theory and a mystery unfolds that shakes the foundation of their plan to its core and changes not only their lives, but the lives of the entire planet as well. A much bigger threat is out there. Can they withstand it? Opening thoughts. Final Fantasy VII as a series itself has seen many additions to its ongoing story over the many years. Yes, I said ongoing. We'll touch on why I said that in a bit. Most people are familiar with the compilation series that deals with titles like Crisis Core, Advent Children, and Dirge of Cerberus, all of which are either prequel titles like Crisis Core or sequels like Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus. Long story short, if you truly want to understand what takes place in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're going to have to play the compilation of games or watch the movie. I don't recommend to anyone who wants to keep their sanity to play Dirge of Cerberus, though. Find someone who did a playthrough and watch that in order to get an idea of the story, because for me personally, it just wasn't a good game, and put the FF7 universe in a weird and incoherent spot that till this day has fans divided on whether it's actually good or bad. Definitely a huge mixed bag. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding this franchise. I could get into things like Deep Ground that take us even further down this gigantic, never-ending rabbit hole, but we'll save that for the yuffie review. So why exactly did I just explain all of this to you when you're just here for the review of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade? Well, that's because reviewing this title is personal for me on an emotional level. I grew up with Final Fantasy VII as a young, bad haircut kid who was more accustomed to platforming games like Mario's and Sonic, or bullet hells like Gradius, and hadn't yet dipped my light-up sneaker toes into the genre known as JRPG. But this all changed when I saw a commercial for the game. You know, the one with the guy saying, "The epic tale not found in theaters."
And a hatred that always was. And now, the most anticipated epic adventure of the year will never come to a theater near you. Final Fantasy VII.
My little kid brain was like, wow, that could be really fun! And little did I know that one game would change my gaming habits going forward permanently, and allow me to appreciate and discover classics like Legend of Mana, Chrono Trigger, Suikoden, Lunar, Dragon Quest, and many more. These are titles I may not have looked at because my view was not opened up to new horizons thus far. When playing the original Final Fantasy VII, I was a bit confused at first. It was different than what my usual style of gameplay was. Why can't I just move whenever? Why do I have to wait my turn? What is ATB? What is materia? What is this? What is that? But the more I played it, the more I noticed how enthralled I was getting with its gameplay. And also now I'm getting invested into its characters and the world itself. Cloud is a huge jerk, and there's something terribly wrong with him, and I wanted to know why. Avalanche? Why are they taking down these things called Mako reactors? Except back then I said it as Mako and not really how it's supposed to be said, because, well, it's text and I knew no better. As I progressed further through the game, I became immersed in the environments of Midgar. These people living in the slums are being left to rot down beneath the plate because the Shinra Corporation gives no crap about them or their well-being, so they do what they can do to survive and salvage what they can to make a living. You genuinely grow a hatred for the Shinra Company, and you want to take them down for good. But when you come to the realization that Shinra isn't the main threat here, and there's an entirely new threat that seeks to destroy the planet, all things change. Once was a game about taking down a big corporation to stop their tyranny and save the city, now becomes a full-fledged adventure, one that requires you to set off into the vast open world and discover new secrets, new continents, new characters, and many other heartbreaking or groundbreaking experiences that leave you filled with so much emotion that the characters themselves, even though they can't talk, feel a part of you and make you feel like you're living their experiences with them as they go through them. This is the beauty that is Final Fantasy VII to me. It's the one game that, till this day, just hearing certain parts of the soundtrack like Ahead on Our Way can immediately thrust back memories into my mind, and I can recall exactly what I was doing in the game my first time experiencing that song or area. Whether I was on my way to see Chocobo Bill and have a fun little dance with Chocobos for some materia, making my trek back towards Calm and learning the full backstory of Cloud and his history with the evil Sephiroth, being thrown in a desert prison and finding out the true reason Barrett has a gun on his arm, experiencing the magnificence of the gold saucer and its date mechanic and accidentally ending up on a date with Barrett instead of my waifu Tifa. There's just so much that happens over the course of 3 discs that took my emotions from happy to angry to sad. One minute I'm laughing at how silly it is to see Turk members Reno and Rude acting like they're school kids and asking each other, who do you like? It's like elementary school or something. And then another example of me just being so damn mad at the betrayal by Kate Sith and just thinking, ugh, I want to strangle this damn puppet so dang much for what he did. The story can definitely get confusing. I won't lie and say it doesn't get a little bit convoluted, but between the vast world that feels alive, with secrets like breeding chocobos so you're able to find the Knights of the Round Summon, using and mixing materia together to create better magic attacks and other spells, completing specific objectives like playing a tune on Tifa's piano, and completing rounds of endurance fights for Cloud at Gold Saucer to obtain their special limit break attacks, makes searching out every secret a journey in itself. Final Fantasy VII, even till this day, and after all these years later, still gives me emotions that no other game has been able to ever since, and many people feel the same way. This is why with the news of it finally being remade, which we've actually wanted for a long time, actually became a reality, we got a little nervous. Square-Enix up to this point has been a company that's hit or miss. Final Fantasy XII, while overall has a pretty bad name, recently people have started to soften up their opinions on it. Then came the Final Fantasy XIII series with its 2 sequels that spawned more controversy, more negative than positive, a failed first launch of Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, which I was actually a part of, and then the long wait for Final Fantasy XV, which was a step in the right direction, but still wasn't up to the high quality we've known Square-Enix to achieve. We were worried that we were going to get the modern era of Square-Enix, and not the classic, hit after hit company of Square that gave us timeless classics. But here we are now, a year out from the release of the game on PS4, and it was mostly met with overwhelming positive reviews and praise. Well, minus a certain aspect that has fans divided still, even me. The original PS4 version was bogged down by several issues such as texture problems, frame rate, load times, and other stuff, but with Intergrade, things were supposed to change. But did they? Only one way to find out. Let's go! Gameplay. As you start your journey, you're thrusted into the game's opening cinematic that has Cloud doing his classic flippin' hero landing in front of the train at Mako Reactor 1. The camera then does a smooth spin around Cloud and bam! You're into the game in one smooth transition. That scene you just thought was a traditional cinematic? That was all in-game, and there's no smoke and mirrors here. The first time I played this scene, I was absolutely floored for 2 reasons. For one, I was amazed that this was actually in-game and not a cutscene, and on the other hand, I couldn't believe I'm actually playing a remake of Final Fantasy VII. It was surreal. But is it really a remake though? Is it really? At least in the technical term? Well, You'll just have to wait to see and find out the answer to that the further I get along with this review. Once you're off and running, this is where the first taste of combat comes into play, and the first mission basically becomes your opening tutorial, albeit a little less intrusive one than you're traditionally accustomed to. Gone are the traditional JRPG turn-based mechanics, and instead it's become more hack-and-slash based in what feels like an evolution of the combat system from Final Fantasy XV. Your first encounter allows you to play around with your normal attacks using the square button in operator mode, while pressing triangle brings you into Punisher mode that allows you to use more powerful sword swipes and offers a chance for you to counterattack if you time switching to Punisher mode at the right moment. If timed just right, you'll counter your enemy's attack and fill up the damage on not just their HP bar, but their stun meter too. Stun meter? The heck is that? Well, stun meter acts as a way to disorient your opponent by momentarily stunning them when they're in this state. And when they're in this state, they're more vulnerable to attacks by you and your party. Now is the time to unleash all your most powerful attacks when your foes are incapacitated. As you make it past the first area, it is here where you can truly see the level of care and love that the developers took with each individual character. In the original Final Fantasy VII, the character Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie are side characters and loyal members of Team Avalanche along with Barret and Tifa. They don't have many lines in the original and are really only in the first few hours of the game, and that's it. We never really learn much about them as far as their backstories, due to their heartbreaking demise at the fall of the Sector 7 plate, but that changes with the fully voiced version of their characters here in the remake. Wedge is a fun-loving guy who is always trying to make a difference any way he can. Jessie is spunky, hyper, and extremely thirsty for Cloud. I'm talking about someone who has been walking in the Sahara Desert for 3 days without water type of thirsty. Sheesh girl, calm down. She flirted with Cloud a bit in the original FF7, but in this game, it's amped up to an 11. Biggs, who looks like Charlie Sheen from Hot Shots, out of everyone in the group of Avalanche, tends to be more serious and thinks things through and worries about the what-ifs, so he always has a plan in case something goes south. This is where the game completely has a one-up against the original, the character development. As you run through the Mako reactor, the banter between Barret and Cloud is pure gold, and their personalities are nailed to a T. Cloud is sarcastic and a huge jerk. He's only there for his paycheck and doesn't give a crap about Avalanche or saving the planet, but Barret is trying to save the planet and thinks Cloud being an ex-soldier for Shinra is suspicious. So, of course, like all men do, they try to out-alpha male each other at every point they can. Whether it be Cloud quipping with attitude, telling Barret to get help for believing he can hear the planet cry in pain, or Barret telling Cloud he'll basically kill him if he sees one sign of him being a backstabber. The best thing about it, the dialogue spoken not only between Cloud and Barret, but with Wedge, Biggs, Jessie, Tifa, Aerith, etc., all feel like natural conversations, with nothing being forced or overly cringe, like the Kingdom Hearts series or previous FF titles. All voice actors and actresses are amazing in this game.
One more thing.
Whoa! Stop it! What in the hell are you trying to...
Easy, you'll make us fall.
Not if you do first!
Maybe you're not okay. Ah, he lives. Finally awake, are we?
You're...
Aerith. It's Aerith. And you are?
God damn it! God damn you! God damn you all! Molly. Molly.
When you're finally ready to plant the bomb at the Mako reactor in order to destroy it, it's time for your first major boss battle against a big mechanized scorpion, one in which you will learn about how to use multiple party members and their special abilities. Remember what I said about bye-bye turn-based system? Well, that was half right. Square-Enix knew that not all people like hack-and-slash titles, and that it could potentially alienate past longtime fans. So, enter Tactical Mode. During a battle, you're able to press X and enter Tactical Mode. In this mode, you'll be able to slow down time and pick your attacks at your own pace, just like a traditional turn-based game, as well as press R2 and L2 to switch between characters to give them commands that range from abilities, spells, items, or their special attack named Limit Breaks that can be used when taking enough damage for a one all-powerful attack. Switching between playable characters also works seamlessly by pressing left or right on the D-pad to immediately switch to your character of choice. If an enemy is high up where someone like Cloud can't reach, it is then advisable to switch to Barret so that he may utilize his gun attacks like Focus Shot or Maximum Fury. It's imperative that you switch characters as often as possible, because if you stay in one character too long, you gain enemy aggro and they will specifically attack that character, so switch it up as often as possible. This boss was a freaking pushover in the original game, but here it's a grand and epic event that has your adrenaline pumping as you're piecing together the right technique to beat him, all while hearing Cloud and Barret talk crap about each other back and forth while they're trying to figure out just what the heck they have to do. When the mech is finally slain, you and Barret must plant the bomb and get out of the reactor as quickly as possible. After you make it out in a slick and fancy style, you see the damage your blast has caused. Thousands are without power, houses burning, and you realize to get revenge on Shinra, you've devastated the lives of innocent civilians. Who's in the wrong? Is it you, or is it in Shinra? The game makes you think on this a lot. Walking around after the explosion, you feel super bad, even though you know Shinra is the one that caused this. The bomb you had planted, a low-level explosive that was used by Jesse, is not one that could do this amount of damage. So what happened? Shinra helped detonate the bomb on a grander scale so that they could make use of propaganda and brand Avalanche as traitorous terrorists who were working with Midgar's adversaries, the Wu Tai. Their whole plan is to gain sympathy by branding Shinra as the victim, so that people rally around them and they can continue the war with Wu Tai for all that power and guild. Man, you hated them in the original, but good lord, you hated them even more in Remake. You want to go full Liam Neeson on them. Being able to walk around the burning and destroyed areas of the sector for the first time, which you didn't get to do much in the original, is heartbreaking. People can't get in touch with relatives. People wondering how they are getting home. You get to see and feel the damage you have done to these poor people's lives. But before you get too upset, we finally get our first few deviations in the story that is completely different from the original game in the form of Sephiroth's return. In the original title, Sephiroth is more of a myth or legend. It's a long and mysterious build-up to find out just what he's all about, and it's done beautifully. But here in Remake, he's like, "Hey guys, what's up? Shall I give you despair?" and shows up at the beginning of the game. Cloud is confused as all hell because he literally killed this man in Nibelheim a few years ago, and there's no way he can be back. But here he is. After some really twisted mind games by Sephiroth, where he shows Cloud his burning village and tells him how he killed Cloud's mom, Cloud snaps out of his would-be hallucination and convinces himself that it wasn't real. But oh god, here we go. This is where I really started getting worried. Now is the time you finally meet Aerith, a bubbly flower girl from the slums, but something is wrong. She's swatting away at the air, but in her panic she grabs you, and you now see what she is so afraid of. Ghost-like figures that look just like Dementors from Harry friggin' Potter. I'm serious. Design could have been better, bucko. Avada Kedavra, just die! These ghosts, they're known as Whispers, the arbitrators of fate. Oh no. Oh boy. Here we go. I'll hold off on my rant for now. As you progress through the story, you'll realize that for the most part, the game follows the original title storyline pretty closely, albeit more fleshed out with the characters and side quests to do. Chapters 1 to 5 cover all your missions relating to Avalanche, such as the Mako reactor bombing or brand new elements, like helping Jessie steal from her coma-induced dad while she, Biggs, and Wedge eat pizza. No, I'm not joking. This is literally what happens. Her mom's pizza prob sucked though, and that's the real reason he's in a coma. Chapter 1 to 5 also introduces a brand new soldier named Rosh, who is loud and obnoxious and just wants to fight for fun, and I friggin' love him. He never came off as evil, just someone who liked to be challenged, and the bike mission to take him down was a blast to play. As I stated in my semi-review of the PS4 version, the best aspects of this game are from the scenes that were in the original game, but now completely more in depth. Like Cloud and Tifa's promise scene in their hometown, Barrett's adorable relationship with his daughter Marlene, Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge all getting their own character development, making you grow to love them even more, which makes it that much more traumatizing when they meet their ends. You knew it was coming because it happened in the original, but now that they all have huge personalities and you spend hours more with them, it's such a damn gut punch watching Biggs and Jessie meet their fate. Ugly face cry time now, folks. The game starts off very strong with chapters 1 to 5, but chapters 6 and 7 is where it hits a snail pace with a lot of filler. These are definitely the missions where they said, "This game is too short, we need something to fill the time with, add these." This happens quite a few times too, even besides those chapters. Like with chapter 10 sewers that seem to go on forever. Chapter 14 where you go back to the sewers again for a time waster of a mission that I could not stand at all. Leslie, I hate you. Pure game padding. Chapter 16 and 17 is also a mixed bag of really awesome elements, like meeting Doggo friend Nanaki, most notably referred to as Red 13, and fighting against a remnant of Genova, one of the main reasons behind everyone's problems, and good lord is this fight good. Fighting can get pretty intense, and holy crap, as soon as the remix of the classic Genova theme starts playing, pure and utter musical bliss to my ears. So damn good.
You okay?
You're up. Here goes.
Taking over. That's that.
Thanks for coming to help.
But while those elements are fun, most of Chapter 17 ends up being pull this lever, walk, pull this lever, walk. And it goes on way too long, and every playthrough it bores me to tears. Easily my favorite chapter in the game is hands down Chapter 9. Going through this chapter and seeing Wall Market fully realized from the original game is a sight to see. Wall Market is basically a more sleazier version of Las Vegas. It has gambling, street thugs, brothels, and even an underground fighting ring, where you and Aerith must team up together in order to win the cash prize and be allowed to enter Don Corneo's mansion to save Tifa. This whole tournament is like one big game show. A game show with death, that is. It all houses one of the most intriguing boss fights in the game, too. Yes, there's a pun that's intended here, because you literally fight a house. Hell House. Once was a random, casual boss fight in the original game, but now full-fledged spectacle. It's both the most WTF moment of the game, but also one of the best. You also get to have a dancing minigame against Honeybee Inn's Andrea, and I don't think I've laughed so hard at a game in a long time. Cloud is always so serious and stoic, but here he is, getting serious and dancing his heart out to win the favor of Andrea to be turned into a woman? Yes, that's right. The only way you can get entry into Don Corneo's mansion is to be a woman. So by impressing Andrea, you get a makeover to dress Cloud up as a girl and infiltrate the mansion along with Aerith to save Tifa. This scene was done to perfection and blows the original game's version of Honeybee Inn out of the water, no contest. But that's enough talk about chapters I like. I want to speak briefly about other mechanics in the game that relates to gameplay and will be key in your success and progression. This has to do with skill trees and materia. As you level up your character, regardless of who it is, you will gain ability points. These ability points are able to be used on characters' weapons that can raise the stats of your HP, MP, attack, extra materia slots, and many other choices. This is the case for every single weapon in the game. That's 24 different weapons, each with their own skill tree, and each adding an additional ability to them as you master them. Focus Thrust for Buster Sword, Maximum Fury with Big Bertha, True Strike with Purple Pain, ATP Ward with Reinforced Staff. These are just some of the abilities gained, and in order to gain these new skills, you must use the weapon over and over till you get enough points to max them out completely. It's a tad repetitive, but it's so worth doing it because once you max out all weapons, you're able to use every single weapon skill you've learned with any weapon of your choosing. So now all you have to do is map your attacks to your controller via battle settings, and use them in fast succession for a more hectic combat pace. Well, that's if you want to, of course. You can still play tactical mode and do everything manually. That's what I do. Materia system is also going to be huge to use. Much like the original game, materia is equipped to add certain abilities or spells for the player, offensive and defensive. These are able to be equipped to your weapons and accessories you wear and can not only give you a boost in defense, but HP as well. Strategizing what to equip people with is key. For a character like Aerith, who acts like your white mage, it's best to equip her with materia such as Magicka, which raises her magic power, healing materia to cast healing spells, and mix in blue materia called Magnify. Why do that? Well, if you link Magnify and healing together, instead of healing one person at a time, it will instead heal your entire party. The same works for her offensive spells as well. Use Magnify and Fire together, and chain a link of fire attacks that hits every enemy. It's damn cool. Same works for anyone else too. Barret is a tank. Equip him with HP up, give Cloud and Tifa first strike materia, and allow them to get a huge boost of ATB at the beginning of any fight to take the advantage in your battles, cause each ability you use drains 1 or more ATB bars. Now, I've been pretty upbeat about this game, right? And for good reason. There's a ton to love about this game. So much in fact that I can't name it all. But now comes my turn to rant on the stuff that confused me or even angered me. Remember when I talked about the whispers earlier? Well, we're back to that now. This is easily one of the worst aspects of the game to me. Every time you move through the game and push the story along, they show up to keep you from something interesting. They're not in the original, so adding them here came off as if Nomura put in another one of his M. Night, what a twist moments. In a nutshell, their job is to make sure fate and course of history is not changed at all. They want things to proceed exactly as they did in the original FF game story, beat for beat, and do everything they can to stop you from trying to deviate from that goal. You learn of their ultimate goal towards the end of the game, when speaking to Red 13 and Aerith. You're on a set path, no way off of it. The only way to change your future of the original FF7 game, which got pretty grim, is to defeat them and change history forever. But here's where I have a few other gripes. From chapter 8 to 16, Aerith is her normal, happy, bubbly self, then out of nowhere, she has a complete character change and she's all-knowing, all-powerful sage type of character that knows everything out of nowhere. I did not like this, as it felt way too sudden, but I have my theory as to why this is. But if I tell you, it might open up the rabbit hole. Nah, screw it. I don't believe she's the Aerith of this timeline, or perhaps another event took place which caused her to see into the future of things that are going to happen, which you will find out shortly in Chapter 18. Oh man, Chapter 18. It's like playing an entirely new game. Everything you witnessed in the regular game seems sort of grounded. Characters struggle, occasionally pull off cool moves, but now they're jumping like anime ninjas, slicing through literal buildings and soaring through the sky. This scene is nearly an identical ripoff to an ending scene of the movie Advent Children. Sephiroth throwing a building, check. Cloud slicing through it, check. Barret flying away from an impact with nearly the same exact animation as the movie, check. It's all a total mind scramble that kind of in a way makes you feel like they betrayed you. You were told that this was going to stay true to the original game, but this strays heavily from that promise. It's like a slap in the face. That is until you realize, oh my god, it was right there in front of us the whole time. Final Fantasy VII Remake is literal. It's the story of being remade, not the game being remade. Yes, if you haven't guessed by now, FF7 Remake is an actual sequel title. Now with branching off timelines where Zack Fair lives instead of dies. Zack's death serves as a catalyst for all the events of the original FF7 to take place. Now that he lived, none of that happens in that timeline. Everything changes. I'm still annoyed by the whispers though, don't get me wrong, but I've always wanted a sequel to FF7 in actual game form, and now I got it! Just at the expense of the original game's story. Conflicted for sure, because this can either go the Kingdom Hearts route of a mess of a story, or become something amazing. There's definitely big plans coming ahead, with more hints coming in yuffie Intermission DLC, which I'll be covering very soon and giving my theories on just where we're heading. Such as, I think the Sephiroth in this game is actually the Sephiroth from the timeline of Advent Children. Ooh! So, stay tuned! Extra stuff. After you've beaten the game, there's still much more to do. Find the ween little boy named Chadley, and take on VR missions that allow you to fight against summon monsters like Shiva, Ifrit, Leviathan, and a fat boy Chocobo, or take on the Shinra VR missions on normal mode and hard mode to get extra prizes, like an accessory that starts you off every battle with a limit break. You're also free to play any chapter to go back and finish all the side quests you want to for extra story arcs, like what dress Tifa will wear, what dress Aerith wears, dialogue outside Aerith's house, etc. Beating the game on hard mode also gives you books for each character that awards AP to max everything out. Definitely worth it. I did every single thing possible during my PS4 playthrough, including beating the hardest challenge in the game, which made you fight 5 enemies in a row on 1 health bar. All the summons, followed by the secret boss. But it was so worth it. Even after doing all this, I still couldn't stop playing, clocking in with a total of 142 hours, now over 160 hours when combined with Intergrade. You won't get bored anytime soon. There's also tons to unpack as far as references go. Longtime fans will get many of them, like Rude having a secret crush on Tifa. In the original, he likes her, and this carries over in Remake. During a scene of the Sector 7 platefall, his partner Reno is about to shoot her with her helicopter, but he pulls the control stick to make him miss, and Reno is just like, "What the heck, bro?" And Rude responds with the, hand slipped. Fans of the original got this reference, and it's the small details that made it amazing. Chapter 4 sees you get a reference to the Gold Saucer play scene from the original game when you find a letter written by Jessie telling her parents that she got into a play as a lead character, the princess at Gold Saucer. In Shinra HQ, you find hints at the long-running fan theory that Final Fantasy X is actually a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, when you find a picture with a man who looks like Shinra from Final Fantasy X-2, who was all about using energy in the name of Spira, much like the Shinra company of Gaia does now. Those are just some of the references for fans to catch. And I didn't even mention the console Easter egg from Crisis Core. Overall, when it's all said and done, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade manages to do what I didn't think was possible. It actually took elements from the original game and made them even better this time around. Amazing character development, smooth and engaging combat that feels like a better version of Final Fantasy XV, deep combat and upgrade system that allows you to mix and match materia and have freedom of using any weapon you want based off your favorite abilities, gorgeous music that gives me goosebumps every time I hear it, reimagined Midgar that immerses you in its atmosphere, and with Intergrade here, improved performance, better texturing, smoother frame rate, and they fixed the infamous door. Game of the Year. Sure, I had my gripes about some of the pacing issues with filler and game padding, the whispers being annoying, characters' personalities just changing randomly, but overall, I genuinely love this game to pieces, and I can officially say childhood not ruined. So with this very long build-up, it's a no-brainer if you have a PS4 or PS5. My verdict is clear. Cayman Chick says bye now.